I'm Audrey Mitchell, 28, and I built my tech company from nothing. 3 years ago, I met Jason Thompson, heir to a banking dynasty that screams old money. Last Friday, at a pre-wedding dinner in their mansion, his father slid a prenuptial agreement across the mahogany table. His cold eyes locked with mine as he delivered the ultimatum: sign it or the wedding's off. They had no idea that my $9 million net worth was about to change everything. If you're watching this, let me know where you're from in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button to see what happens when new money meets old entitlement. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Seattle, where my dad worked as an engineer and my mom taught elementary school. We weren't poor, but we definitely weren't wealthy. My parents instilled in me the values of hard work, integrity, and independence. They scraped together enough to send me to college, where I majored in computer science with a minor in business. After graduation, while my classmates chased jobs at Google and Microsoft, I had a different vision. I developed a unique algorithm during my senior project that could revolutionize how small businesses handled customer acquisition. With just $5,000 in savings and a mountain of student loans, I started Mitchell Tech Solutions from my tiny apartment. Those first years were brutal: 18-hour days, ramen noodles for dinner, and the constant fear of failure. But gradually, my client list grew. By 26, I had 15 employees and an office in downtown Seattle. I met Jason at a charity gala 3 years ago. I almost didn't attend. Tickets were $500, which seemed extravagant, but my newest client had insisted I join their table. Jason was instantly recognizable as he moved through the crowd. The Thompson banking family was Seattle royalty, with their name on buildings and endowments throughout the city. He wasn't what I expected. While everyone else networked aggressively, Jason stood quietly by the windows, looking slightly bored. When our eyes met across the room, he smiled, not the practiced smile of someone working the room, but something genuine. We talked for hours that night, about everything except money and status. He listened intently as I described my passion for helping small businesses compete in the digital marketplace. By the end of the evening, I was smitten. Our relationship progressed quickly. Jason was charming, intelligent, and seemed refreshingly down-to-earth despite his background. Within 6 months, we were discussing a future together. It was only then that I began to see glimpses of the vast differences in our worlds. The first time I visited the Thompson estate on Mercer Island, I felt like I'd stepped onto a movie set. The sprawling Georgian mansion overlooked Lake Washington, with manicured gardens and a private dock. Inside, generations of Thompson portraits lined the walls, silent judges of everyone who entered. His mother, Evelyn, greeted me with a cool assessment barely disguised as a smile. "So lovely to meet the woman who's been occupying so much of Jason's time," she said, her gaze sliding over my off-the-rack dress. His father, Howard, was more direct. Over dinner, he questioned me about my little business and seemed disappointed when I couldn't name any country club affiliations. Despite these uncomfortable encounters, Jason and I grew closer. He proposed a year ago with a Thompson family heirloom ring that had belonged to his grandmother. I said yes without hesitation, believing our love could bridge any differences. Wedding planning quickly became a battleground. Evelyn had definite ideas about what constituted an appropriate Thompson wedding. Every suggestion I made was politely but firmly redirected. The guest list grew to include hundreds of people I'd never met. Business associates, family connections, and Seattle's elite. My own list of friends and family seemed pathetically small in comparison. Through it all, my business continued to thrive. A revolutionary update to my core algorithm caught the attention of larger tech companies. Suddenly, I was fielding acquisition offers in the millions. Last month, after a particularly aggressive round of venture capital interest, Mitchell Tech Solutions was officially valued at $9 million. I was stunned and secretly proud. The girl from the middle-class Seattle neighborhood had built something valuable through sheer determination and intelligence. I didn't broadcast my success, partly because it was still sinking in and partly because I wanted to be sure Jason loved me for myself, not my increasingly valuable company. He seemed supportive of my career, though occasionally he'd make comments about how I'd have more free time after we're married, or ask when I planned to hand off the day-to-day operations. I brushed these aside as misunderstandings, believing Jason respected my passion for my work. As our wedding date approached, tensions with his family increased. Small comments became more frequent. Of course, you'll move into the Thompson estate after the wedding, or I assume you'll join the foundation board once you're a Thompson. Each assumption chipped away at my confidence that I could maintain my identity in this family. Jason assured me everything would work out, but I noticed he rarely contradicted his parents directly. Which brings me to last Friday night and the pre-wedding dinner that would change everything. The Thompson estate looked particularly imposing that evening, illuminated against the darkening sky like a fortress of privilege. Jason squeezed my hand as we walked up the grand entrance steps. "Just a quick dinner," he whispered. "We'll be out of here in 2 hours, tops." The family butler, yes, they actually had a butler, took our coats and directed us to the formal dining room. The space was a monument to old wealth, crystal chandelier, antique sideboard laden with silver, and a massive mahogany table that could seat 20. Tonight, it was set for 7. Howard and Evelyn Thompson sat at opposite ends of the table, power positions that allowed them to control the conversation. Jason's older brother Michael and his wife Diana were already seated, cocktails in hand. Michael had followed the prescribed Thompson path, Ivy League education, joining the family bank, marrying the daughter of another prominent family. Diana acknowledged me with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. Jason's younger sister Amanda arrived moments after us, bringing a momentary lightness to the room. At 25, she was the family rebel, studying art history instead of finance and openly dating a musician. She hugged me warmly, ignoring her mother's disapproving glance. "Audrey, darling, do sit here." Evelyn gestured to a chair halfway down the table, separating me from Jason, who was directed to sit near his father. The seating arrangement wasn't accidental, nothing in this house ever was. Dinner proceeded with excruciating formality. The conversation swirled around people I didn't know and events I hadn't attended. Whenever I attempted to contribute, Evelyn would politely acknowledge my comment before steering the discussion elsewhere. The message was clear: I was an outsider. "Mitchell Tech Solutions," Howard suddenly said during the main course, interrupting a story about someone's summer home in the Hamptons. "That's your company, correct?" Jason mentioned you've had some success. All eyes turned to me. "Yes," I replied, keeping my tone modest. "We've grown steadily over the past few years. Small business technology, isn't it? Websites and such." Howard waved his hand dismissively. "We develop proprietary algorithms for customer acquisition and retention," I corrected gently. "Our focus is helping small and medium businesses compete with larger corporations in the digital marketplace." "How charming," Evelyn interjected. "A little entrepreneurial project. But of course, after the wedding, you'll have so many new responsibilities. The Thompson Family Foundation alone requires considerable attention." "I plan to continue running my company after we're married," I said, meeting her gaze directly. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Jason shifted in his seat, but said nothing. "Well, we can discuss all that later," Howard said smoothly. "For now, let's enjoy this excellent meal." The rest of dinner passed in a blur of tense smiles and superficial conversation. When the dessert plates were cleared, I thought we'd finally escaped. That's when Howard nodded to the butler, who disappeared briefly before returning with a leather portfolio. Before we conclude our evening, Howard announced, "There's a matter of business to address." He accepted the portfolio and extracted a thick document, sliding it across the table toward me. "The Thompson Family Prenuptial Agreement. Standard procedure, of course." I stared at the document, blindsided. I wasn't aware we would be discussing this tonight. "Just a formality," Evelyn added with a practiced smile. "All Thompson marriages include proper protections." "Diana signed one, didn't you, dear?" Diana nodded, not meeting my eyes. With trembling fingers, I opened the document and began scanning the dense legal text. My stomach dropped as I grasped the key provisions. In the event of divorce, I would receive nothing from Jason's assets or family trusts. I would be required to relinquish control of my company if we had children. Any intellectual property developed during our marriage would be considered joint property, with exclusive licensing rights to Thompson Banking Group. This seems extensive, I managed, looking up at Jason. His expression was pained, but he remained silent. The Thompson family has accumulated wealth across 5 generations, Howard stated firmly. We have a responsibility to protect those assets. Surely you understand. What I understand, I said carefully, is that this agreement offers me no protections whatsoever. It only protects the Thompson family. Evelyn's smile hardened. My dear, you're marrying into one of Seattle's most prominent families. The connections and opportunities alone are worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. We need the agreement signed before the wedding, Howard added, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request. Our family lawyers have been quite insistent. I looked at Jason, waiting for him to say something, anything in my defense. He fidgeted with his water glass, then finally spoke. It's just a precaution, Audrey. It doesn't mean anything as long as we stay married. And if I don't sign? I asked, already knowing the answer. Howard's expression was stone. Then I'm afraid there can be no wedding. The Thompson family cannot risk our holdings without proper legal protections. Sign it or the wedding's off, he added, removing any ambiguity. The drive home was silent and tense. Jason kept both hands on the wheel, his knuckles white. I should have warned you, he finally said as we crossed the bridge back to Seattle. I didn't want to upset you before the dinner. So instead you let me be ambushed in front of your entire family? My voice shook with anger and hurt. They're traditional, Audrey. They did the same with Diana when she married Michael. It's just how things are done in families like mine. Families like yours, I repeated. And what am I? Just some commoner who should be grateful for the opportunity to join the mighty Thompsons. That's not fair, Jason protested. You know I don't think that way. Then why didn't you stand up for me? Why didn't you tell them their prenup is completely one-sided? He sighed heavily. It's complicated. Family expectations, traditions that go back generations. That's not an answer, Jason. Look, he said, his voice taking on a pleading tone I'd never heard before. Can you just sign it? To make them happy? It doesn't matter to us. We're going to be together forever anyway, right? I stared at him, this man I thought I knew, and wondered who he really was. Take me home, I said quietly. I need to think. When we reached my apartment, Jason tried to come up with me, but I stopped him. Not tonight. I need space. As I watched his car pull away, I realized the Thompson family had no idea who they were dealing with. They saw me as a middle-class girl who'd lucked into their world, not as a woman who'd built a multi-million-dollar company through sheer grit and intelligence. They had underestimated me severely, and that was their first mistake. The next morning, I called my best friend Sophia before the sun was even up. They did what? She practically shouted after I recounted the previous night's events. Sophia had been my roommate in college and had witnessed the birth of my company from our tiny shared apartment. She knew better than anyone what I'd sacrificed to build Mitchell Tech. I need a lawyer, I told her. Not just any lawyer, someone who specializes in prenuptial agreements and isn't afraid to go up against old money. I've got you, Sophia replied without hesitation. My cousin Taylor Williams is exactly who you need. She specializes in high-asset divorces and prenups. She's a shark in a pantsuit. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Taylor Williams' downtown office, the Thompson prenup spread across her glass desk. Taylor was everything Sophia had promised, sharp, direct, and utterly unimpressed by the Thompson name. This, she said, tapping the document with a perfectly manicured nail, is one of the most one-sided prenuptial agreements I've ever seen. And I've seen some doozies. How bad is it? I asked. Let me count the ways. Taylor flipped through the pages, highlighting passages. You get nothing in a divorce, regardless of fault or duration of marriage. You must relinquish control of your company if you have children. All intellectual property developed during the marriage is jointly owned with exclusive licensing to Thompson Banking. And my personal favorite, you waive rights to any future earnings derived from products or services you develop during the marriage. She looked up at me, her expression serious. Audrey, this isn't a prenup. It's a corporate takeover disguised as a marriage contract. Can we negotiate better terms? We can try, but from what you've told me about last night, the Thompsons don't seem open to negotiation. Taylor leaned back in her chair. Before we go further, I need to know, how much is your company currently worth? The latest valuation put us at $9 million, I said. I've had acquisition offers ranging from $7 to $12 million, depending on the terms. Taylor's eyebrows shot up. Do the Thompsons know this? I don't think so. Jason knows I'm doing well, but I don't think he understands the numbers. His family definitely doesn't know. A slow smile spread across Taylor's face. That changes things considerably. You're not the financially dependent spouse they think you are. What do you recommend? Information is power, Taylor replied. Before we counter their prenup, I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. How much do you know about the current state of Thompson Banking Group? Not much, I admit it. They project an image of unlimited wealth, but Jason never discusses specifics. Let me make some inquiries, Taylor said. Banking is a tough sector right now, especially for traditional institutions. I have contacts who might provide insight into their current financial position. Over the next week, I buried myself in work, avoiding Jason's calls until I had a clearer picture of what I was facing. He left increasingly desperate voicemails, ranging from apologetic to frustrated. Please call me back, Audrey. We need to talk about this. My parents are just being protective. The wedding is in 8 weeks. We need to resolve this. While Taylor worked her contacts in the financial sector, I did some digging of my own. As a tech CEO, I had access to industry analytics that tracked market trends across multiple sectors. The data on traditional banking wasn't encouraging. Institutions like Thompson Banking Group were losing ground to fintech startups and digital-first banks. When Taylor called me into her office the following week, her expression confirmed my suspicions. Thompson Banking Group isn't the powerhouse it once was, she began, sliding a folder across her desk. They've had 3 consecutive quarters of declining profits. Their customer base is aging, and they're failing to attract younger clients. Most concerning, they've leveraged several of their historic properties, including the family estate, to maintain liquidity. They're in trouble, I said, scanning the documents. Not bankruptcy-level trouble, but they're definitely feeling the squeeze. The Thompson name still carries weight, but the substance behind it is eroding. Taylor gave me a pointed look. Your $9 million company might actually be more financially stable than their 150-year-old bank. I sat back, processing this information. So when they insisted on that prenup, they weren't just protecting their assets from you, Taylor finished. They were potentially positioning themselves to acquire yours. That evening, Jason showed up at my apartment unannounced, a bouquet of my favorite lilies in hand. I let him in, but kept my distance. I've been calling you for days, he said, his expression a mixture of relief and frustration. We need to talk about the prenup. Yes, we do, I agreed, not taking the flowers. Did you know about it before the dinner? Jason's hesitation told me everything. I knew my parents would want one, he finally admitted. It's standard for Thompson marriages. Did you read it? Did you know what it contained? He looked away. Not in detail. My father assured me it was the same agreement Michael and Diana signed. It requires me to give up my company if we have children, I said flatly. It gives your family exclusive rights to my intellectual property. Did you know that? No, not specifically. Jason ran a hand through his hair. Look, Audrey, I know it seems harsh, but my parents are just being cautious. They don't really know you yet. And you? I asked, my voice catching. Do you know me, Jason? Do you understand what my company means to me? Of course I do, he insisted, stepping toward me. And none of this matters because we're going to be together forever. The prenup is just a formality that will never come into play. Then why have it at all? Because that's how things work in my family, he exclaimed, frustration breaking through. There are traditions and expectations that go back generations. I can't just ignore them. Even when they're unfair to the woman you claim to love? Jason's shoulders slumped. I was hoping you would understand and just sign it. For me. To make things easier. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what our marriage would be like, a lifetime of capitulating to Thompson family traditions, of setting aside my own needs and dreams to make things easier for Jason. I wasn't sure I knew who he really was anymore. I need you to leave, I said quietly. Audrey, please. I need time to think, Jason. About the prenup, about us, about everything. After he left, I sat alone in my apartment, turning my engagement ring around my finger. The diamond caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across my wall. It was beautiful, valuable, and came with strings attached that might strangle me. I knew what I had to do. For 3 days, I moved through my life like a zombie. I went to work, led meetings, made decisions for my company, all while my personal life hung in a painful limbo. My employees noticed something was wrong, but respected my privacy. Only Sophia knew the full story, bringing me dinner each night and listening as I talked through my options. I love him, I told her on the 3rd night, curled up on my couch with a glass of wine. Despite everything, I love Jason. But do you love who he actually is, or who you thought he was? Sophia asked gently. Her question hit me like a physical blow. Who is Jason Thompson, really? The man who spent hours discussing my business ideas and brought me soup when I was sick? Or the man who expected me to sacrifice my life's work to satisfy his family's expectations? I need to talk to my parents, I decided. The next day, I drove to my childhood home in the suburbs. My parents welcomed me with warm hugs and concerned expressions. They could tell something was wrong. Over Mom's homemade lasagna, I told them everything. $9 million, my father repeated, fork frozen halfway to his mouth. Your company is worth $9 million? Give or take, I confirmed. I didn't really process it myself until recently. Oh, honey, my mother reached for my hand. We always knew you were building something special, but that's extraordinary. And the Thompsons want you to potentially give it up? My father asked, his expression darkening. According to their prenup, yes. If we have children, I'd have to step down and transfer control. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. What? I asked. Audrey, my mother said carefully, do you remember what you told us when you started your company? You said it wasn't just about making money, it was about creating something that was entirely yours, that no one could take away from you. I nodded, throat tight with emotion. That company is the result of your brain, your sweat, your sleepless nights, my father added. No one, not even the man you love, has the right to ask you to give that up. But what if I'm overreacting? I asked. What if walking away from Jason is the biggest mistake of my life? My mother squeezed my hand. The biggest mistake would be walking into a marriage where you're expected to be less than who you are. Their words stayed with me as I drove back to Seattle. My parents had always taught me to stand my ground, to know my worth. They'd supported my dreams even when they didn't fully understand them. Wasn't that what real love looked like? Back at my apartment, I threw myself into researching the Thompson family's financial situation more thoroughly. Using my tech industry connections and publicly available financial data, I pieced together a clearer picture of Thompson Banking Group's position. The bank was still profitable, but their growth had stagnated compared to more innovative competitors. They'd recently closed 3 branch locations and laid off staff. Most telling, they'd abandoned plans for an ambitious digital banking platform after the development costs ballooned. I also discovered something interesting. The timing of Jason's proposal roughly coincided with the bank's first quarter of significant profit decline. Had the Thompsons encouraged our relationship once they realized the potential value of my tech expertise to their struggling bank? The thought made me sick, but I couldn't dismiss it entirely. Especially when I considered how quickly Evelyn Thompson had overcome her initial disdain for me once Jason mentioned my technological innovations. While I was still processing these revelations, Jason showed up at my apartment again. This time, he brought not just flowers, but an expensive bottle of champagne. I know you're upset, he began as soon as I opened the door. And you have every right to be. The prenup is harsh, and I should have warned you. I let him in but remained standing, arms crossed. I've been thinking, Jason continued, setting down the champagne. Maybe we can negotiate some of the terms. Make it more fair to you. Which terms exactly? I asked. Well, he hesitated. Maybe the intellectual property clauses? I'm sure my father would be reasonable if we explained your concerns. And the part about giving up my company if we have children? Jason's expression faltered. That might be trickier. My parents have strong feelings about mothers being present for their children, not distracted by business commitments. I see, I said quietly. And what are your feelings about that, Jason? He didn't answer immediately, which was an answer in itself. I love you, Audrey, he finally said, reaching for my hands. We can work this out. Just sign the basic agreement for now, to keep the peace, and we'll revisit these issues after the wedding when everyone's calmer. I stepped back, breaking contact. So your solution is for me to sign away my rights now and hope your family becomes more reasonable later? You're making this more complicated than it needs to be, Jason said, frustration creeping into his voice. This is just how things work in families like mine. You keep saying that, I noted. But have you ever questioned whether how things work in your family is actually right? Jason ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing, but now recognized as a sign he was avoiding a difficult truth. Can we just focus on our future together? On how much we love each other? Standing there, looking at this man I'd planned to marry, I finally understood the truth. Love wasn't enough. Not if it came at the cost of my identity, my achievements, my self-respect. I need more time, I told him. And I need you to leave now. After he left, I called Taylor Williams. I've made my decision, I told her. I'm not signing their prenup, but I'm not walking away either. I want to present my own terms. Now you're talking, Taylor said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. What did you have in mind? Something that protects us both, I replied. And I want to deliver it personally, to the entire Thompson family. That's a power move, Taylor warned. Are you sure? Absolutely, I said, my resolve strengthening. They've underestimated me from day one. It's time they learned exactly who they're dealing with. Over the next week, Taylor and I worked with my financial advisor Marcus Chin to craft a prenuptial agreement that was actually fair to both parties. We included protections for family inheritances on both sides, reasonable support provisions in case of divorce, and most importantly, explicit language guaranteeing my continued ownership and control of Mitchell Tech Solutions regardless of our family status. I also drafted a separate document, a potential business collaboration between my company and Thompson Banking Group that could actually benefit both entities. It wasn't part of the prenup, but rather a good faith demonstration that I was willing to work with the family as a partner, not an adversary. This is solid, Taylor said as we reviewed the final documents. Fair, balanced, and it protects your interests without being punitive to theirs. Will they see it that way? I asked. That depends on whether they're more interested in control or in what's best for Jason. And their bank, Marcus replied. I scheduled the meeting for Saturday afternoon at the Thompson estate. Jason was confused when I told him I wanted to meet with the entire family, but he arranged it, clearly relieved that I was willing to discuss the prenup at all. That morning, I dressed with deliberate care, a tailored navy suit that projected confidence without aggression, subtle makeup, and my grandmother's pearl earrings for a touch of family tradition of my own. Taylor and Marcus would accompany me, providing professional support and sending a clear message that I wasn't easily intimidated. Ready for this? Taylor asked as our car pulled up to the Thompson estate. As I'll ever be, I replied, taking a deep breath. Jason met us at the door, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. Everyone's in the library, he said, eyeing Taylor and Marcus uncertainly. You brought your team. Yes, I said simply. Shall we? The Thompson Library was designed to impress. 2 stories of leather-bound books, a massive stone fireplace, and furniture that probably cost more than my first year of college. Howard and Evelyn sat in matching wingback chairs, while Michael and Diana occupied a leather sofa. Amanda perched on a window seat, looking uncomfortable. Audrey, Howard said, standing as we entered. His gaze swept over Taylor and Marcus. I wasn't aware this would be a formal negotiation. I believe that ship sailed when you presented me with a 30-page prenuptial agreement, Mr. Thompson, I replied evenly. Allow me to introduce my attorney, Taylor Williams, and my financial advisor, Marcus Chen. Jason moved to stand beside me, but I subtly positioned myself a step away. This was my moment, and I needed to stand on my own. "I've reviewed your proposed agreement," I began, meeting Howard's gaze directly. "And I have a response." I nodded to Marcus, who opened his briefcase and extracted our counteroffer, handing copies to each Thompson family member. "Before you review my proposed revisions, there's something you should know," I continued. Mitchell Tech Solutions was recently valued at $9 million, with acquisition offers ranging up to $12 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Howard's face went slack with shock. Evelyn's eyes widened as she processed the information. Michael and Diana exchanged stunned glances. Only Amanda looked genuinely impressed, a small smile playing at her lips. "9 million," Jason repeated, staring at me. "Your company is worth $9 million? "That's correct," I confirmed. "I've built a highly successful tech company that's revolutionizing how small businesses compete in the digital marketplace. My team has developed proprietary algorithms that major tech companies are eager to acquire." "Why didn't you tell me?" Jason asked, hurt evident in his voice. "Why didn't you tell me about the prenup before your father ambushed me with it?" I countered quietly. Howard cleared his throat, regaining his composure. "Well, this is unexpected, but it doesn't change the fundamental need for a prenuptial agreement." "I agree completely," I said, surprising him. "That's why I've prepared one that actually protects both parties equitably." I outline the key provisions of my counteroffer: fair protection of premarital assets for both sides, reasonable support terms, and explicit protection of my continued right to run my company. "This seems quite different from our standard agreement," Howard said stiffly. "Because it's an actual partnership agreement, not a corporate acquisition," Taylor interjected smoothly. "And speaking of partnerships," I continued, nodding to Marcus, who distributed our second document, "I've also prepared a potential framework for a business collaboration between Mitchell Tech Solutions and Thompson Banking Group." Howard's eyebrows shot up as he scanned the document. "My research indicates that Thompson Banking has struggled to develop effective digital banking platforms," I explained. "My company specializes in exactly the kind of technology and customer acquisition strategies that could help modernize your operations and attract younger clients." "You researched our bank?" Michael asked, speaking for the first time. "Of course," I replied. "Just as I'm sure you researched me, or should have, before presenting a prenuptial agreement that would potentially give you control of my intellectual property." Howard's face flushed. "This is highly irregular. The Thompson family has used the same prenuptial framework for generations. And how has that framework adapted to professional women who bring significant assets to the marriage?" I asked pointedly. No one answered. "I love Jason," I said, softening my tone slightly. "And I want to build a life with him. But I won't start that life by signing away everything I've worked for. Either we enter this marriage as equals, or we don't enter it at all." Howard pushed to his feet, anger finally breaking through his composed facade. "I won't be dictated to by some nouveau riche girl who happened to get lucky with a tech startup." "Father," Jason protested, stepping forward. "Howard, please," Evelyn murmured, clearly uncomfortable with his outburst. I held my ground. "Mr. Thompson, luck had nothing to do with the success of my company. I built it through intelligence, innovation, and thousands of hours of hard work. The fact that you dismiss that achievement so easily tells me everything I need to know about how you view me, and women in general." "This isn't about gender," Howard insisted. "It's about protecting the Thompson legacy." "A legacy that's currently leveraged to maintain liquidity," Marcus observed quietly, glancing up from the financial reports he'd brought. 3 consecutive quarters of declining profits must be concerning. The room went completely still. "You looked into our finances?" Howard whispered, his face pale. "As I said, I did my research," I replied calmly. "Just as you should have done yours." "This is outrageous," Howard sputtered. "Jason, are you going to allow this invasion of our privacy?" All eyes turned to Jason, who looked torn between family loyalty and something else, perhaps a dawning realization. "Is it true, Dad?" he asked quietly. "About the bank's financial situation?" Howard's silence was damning. "We've faced some temporary setbacks," Michael admitted, stepping into the uncomfortable gap. "Nothing we can't overcome with the right strategy." A strategy that might benefit from Audrey's technological expertise? Amanda suggested, not bothering to hide her smirk. That's what this was really about, wasn't it? Jason said slowly, understanding spreading across his features. The prenup, the rush to integrate Audrey into the foundation. You wanted access to her company and her technology. Don't be ridiculous, Evelyn protested. We merely wanted to protect the family interests, as we've always done. But the damage was done. Jason turned to me, his expression stricken. Audrey, I had no idea. I swear. Your position is clear, Ms. Mitchell, Howard said coldly. I assume you understand that if you refuse to sign our agreement, there will be no wedding. I met his gaze steadily. My position is that I deserve the same respect and protection that any member of this family would receive. If that's unacceptable to you, then yes, there will be no wedding. Jason, Howard turned to his son. Surely you understand the importance of maintaining our family traditions. Jason looked from his father to me, conflict written across his face. Then, something seemed to strengthen in his expression. He walked to my side and took my hand firmly in his. What I understand, he said quietly, is that the woman I love deserves better than what this family has offered her. I support Audrey's counteroffer, Dad. It's fair to everyone. Howard's face reddened. This isn't how a Thompson behaves. You have responsibilities to this family. Yes, I do, Jason agreed. But I also have responsibilities to the woman who will become my wife. I've let you dictate terms for too long, allowed you to control aspects of my life that should have been mine to decide. That ends today. With that declaration, he squeezed my hand and led me toward the door. I glanced back at the stunned faces of the Thompson family, noting with interest that Amanda gave me a subtle thumbs up. Where are you going? Howard demanded. We haven't finished this discussion. Yes, we have, Jason replied without turning around. Review Audrey's proposal. If you decide you can treat her with the respect she deserves, we can talk again. We walked out together, followed by Taylor and Marcus. Only when we reached my car did Jason's confident facade crack slightly. Did I justify my father for the first time in 30 years? He asked, voice shaking. I believe you did, I confirmed, studying his face. Are you okay? He thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. Actually, I think I am. I should have done it years ago. As we drove away from the Thompson estate, I wasn't certain what the future held for us. But for the first time since the prenup ambush, I felt a glimmer of hope that Jason and I might find a way forward together as equals. The following days brought radio silence from Thompson Sr., but the family wasn't entirely united against us. To my surprise, Michael called me directly on Monday morning. That was quite a performance Saturday, he said when I answered. His tone wasn't antagonistic, more contemplative. It wasn't a performance, I replied. Just honesty. Well, it certainly shook things up around here. He paused. Look, Audrey, I've reviewed your business collaboration proposal more thoroughly. The technology integration you're suggesting could potentially address several critical challenges we're facing. I'm aware, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Would you be willing to meet with me, just me, to discuss it further? Purely from a business perspective, separate from the prenup situation. I considered his request. I'd be open to that under the right circumstances. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a private room at a downtown restaurant rather than either of our offices. When I arrived, I was surprised to find not only Michael waiting, but Amanda as well. Hope you don't mind the addition, Michael said as I took a seat. Amanda insisted on coming. I wouldn't miss this for the world, Amanda grinned. You're the first person who's ever stood up to Dad like that. It was magnificent. Despite myself, I smiled. I take it he's still upset? Fuming, Michael confirmed. But also contemplative. You forced him to confront some truths he's been avoiding. About the bank situation? Michael nodded. We're not in crisis, but we're definitely at a crossroads. The banking industry is evolving rapidly, and we've been slow to adapt. Your analysis was uncomfortably accurate. Is that why you wanted to meet? To discuss the bank's challenges? Partly, Michael admitted. Your proposal has real merit. But I also wanted to apologize for not speaking up during that prenup ambush. Diana and I knew it was wrong, but But standing up to Howard Thompson isn't easy. I finished for him. No, it's not, Amanda agreed. Which is why what Jason did was so shocking. I've never seen him defy Dad before. How is Jason? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. We'd spoken briefly since the confrontation, but he'd been staying with a friend, needing space to process everything. Confused, angry, but also different somehow, Michael said. More confident. He told Dad yesterday that he's taking a leave of absence from the bank to reassess his career options. My eyebrows shot up. Really? He never mentioned being unhappy at the bank. That's the thing about our family, Amanda said, stirring her coffee. We're not encouraged to express dissatisfaction with the prescribed Thompson path. Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected guest. Diana, Michael's wife, slipped into the room looking nervous. Sorry I'm late, she said, taking a seat beside Michael. I wasn't sure I should come, but I wanted to meet with you properly, Audrey. I nodded cautiously. Diana had always been polite but distant. I signed a similar prenup when I married Michael, she said quietly. Not quite as restrictive as what they offered you, but similar in spirit. I've always regretted not pushing back. Diana was a promising architect before we married, Michael explained, covering his wife's hand with his own. The agreement required her to limit her practice once we had children. And now I design guest houses for family friends instead of the commercial buildings I trained for, Diana said with a sad smile. Don't misunderstand, I love our children, but I could have been both a mother and a professional. That's exactly what I've been saying. Amanda exclaimed. Our family is stuck in 1950s gender roles, and it's absurd. The conversation flowed more easily after that revelation. We discussed my business proposal in detail, with Michael asking insightful questions about implementation and integration. By the time lunch arrived, it felt almost like a normal family meeting if families normally discussed digital banking platforms and API integrations. As we were finishing our meal, Michael's phone buzzed. He checked it and his expression grew serious. It's Dad. Apparently he's had some kind of episode. Mom's taken him to the hospital. The mood instantly shifted. Whatever our differences, this was potentially serious. Go, I urged. Family comes first in moments like this. They hurried out, leaving me alone with the remains of our lunch and conflicting emotions. I genuinely hoped Howard was all right, while also recognizing the complicated dynamics at play. Jason called me that evening. Dad's okay, he said, sounding exhausted. Stress-induced chest pains, not a heart attack. But it scared him, scared all of us. I'm glad he's all right, I said sincerely. The doctor read him the riot act about reducing stress, Jason continued. And it's made him reflective. He asked about you. About me. He wanted to know if I was serious about supporting your counteroffer. If I was willing to break with family tradition over this. And what did you tell him? I asked, heart pounding. The truth. That I love you, respect what you've built, and won't ask you to sacrifice your achievements for outdated traditions. That if he forces me to choose, I choose you. Tears welled in my eyes. Jason. I should have said it from the beginning, he continued, voice thick with emotion. I was a coward, Audrey. Afraid to stand up to my family, afraid to break the mold I've been forced into my whole life. Watching you defend your work, your worth, it made me realize how much I've compromised my own identity to please my parents. Where does this leave us? I asked. I don't know exactly, he admitted. But I'm hoping we can figure it out together. As partners, not as a Thompson and his wife, but as Jason and Audrey, building something new. 2 days later, I received a call from Evelyn Thompson, inviting me to meet with her and Howard at their home. Jason offered to accompany me, but I decided to go alone. This conversation needed to happen without him running interference. Howard looked diminished somehow, sitting in his study with a cardigan instead of his usual power suit. Evelyn hovered nearby, clearly concerned. Thank you for coming, Audrey, Howard said formally. I believe I owe you an apology. I sat across from him, back straight. I'm listening. My behavior at our last meeting was unacceptable. The things I said were disrespectful to you and your achievements. He paused, clearly struggling. This health scare has forced me to reconsider certain perspectives. What Howard is trying to say, Evelyn interjected, is that we've been unfair to you. We approached your relationship with Jason as a potential threat rather than a blessing. You were protecting your family interests, I acknowledged. I understand that impulse. But protection shouldn't mean control. Howard nodded slowly. Michael has been singing the praises of your business proposal. He believes a collaboration between your company and our bank could be transformative. It could be, I agreed cautiously. We've reviewed your prenuptial counteroffer as well, Evelyn added. It's actually quite reasonable. The question is, Howard said, meeting my gaze directly, where do we go from here? Jason seems determined to forge his own path, with or without our blessing. He loves you both, I said. But he needs to be respected as an adult who can make his own choices. And you? Howard asked. What do you need, Audrey? The same respect. Recognition that what I've built matters, and that I won't abandon it. And understanding that if I join this family, it will be as an equal, not as an acquisition. Howard and Evelyn exchanged glances. We can work with that, Howard said finally. It won't be easy, old habits die hard. But we're willing to try. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a beginning. As I left the Thompson estate that day, I felt cautiously optimistic that we might actually find a way forward, not just for Jason and me, but for bringing a traditional family into a more equitable future. 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of negotiations, conversations, and reevaluations. I threw myself into work, using the focus of business decisions to clear my head. We were considering 3 serious acquisition offers, each with different terms and visions for the company's future. The numbers were dizzying, far beyond what I'd imagined when I started with $5,000 in my apartment. Jason and I maintained some distance, talking daily but giving each other space to process everything that had happened. He was serious about reassessing his career, even meeting with startup incubators to understand the entrepreneurial landscape. It was like watching him awaken to possibilities he'd never allowed himself to consider. I was reviewing term sheets in my office when my assistant announced unexpected visitors, Amanda and Michael Thompson. We come in peace, Amanda declared, flopping into a chair across from my desk. And bearing gifts of information. Michael, more reserved, took the other seat. We wanted to update you on family discussions before you hear a sanitized version from our parents. I'm listening, I said, setting aside my work. First, Dad has officially agreed to your prenuptial terms, Amanda said, with only minor tweaks that Taylor has already reviewed and approved. I raised my eyebrows. That's surprising. His health scare was a genuine wake-up call, Michael explained. And frankly, your business proposal made him realize you could be an asset to the family rather than a threat. So I'm useful now? I asked dryly. You've always been useful, Amanda replied. They just couldn't see past their own biases. But there's more. Mom is actually advocating for integrating your customer acquisition algorithms into the bank's digital strategy. She called you refreshingly innovative at the last family dinner. Now that is surprising, I laughed. The most shocking development, Michael continued, is that they're supportive of Jason's career exploration. Dad suggested that Jason's experience at the bank combined with your tech expertise could create interesting opportunities. They're trying, Amanda said, more seriously. Imperfectly, awkwardly, but genuinely trying. Which is not something I ever expected to see. After they left, I sat thinking about everything that had transpired. The Thompson family was evolving slowly, with resistance, but evolving nonetheless. And Jason was evolving too, discovering his own voice and vision. The question was, where did that leave us? I got my answer that evening when Jason asked me to meet him at Cary Park, where we'd had our first official date. The viewpoint overlooked the Seattle skyline, the Space Needle illuminated against the darkening sky. Remember our first time here? He asked as I joined him at the railing. You were so nervous you spilled coffee all over your shirt. I smiled at the memory. And you gave me your scarf to cover it up, even though it was freezing. It was cashmere, I reminded him. I still want it back. We laughed, and for a moment, it felt like before easy, comfortable, right? I've been doing a lot of thinking, Jason said, turning to face me. About us, about what I want from life, about who I really am outside of the Thompson expectations. And what have you discovered? That I want a partner, not an accessory. That I'm more interested in building something new than preserving something old. That I love you, not despite your success and independence, but because of it. My heart swelled, but caution kept me measured. Your family is learning to adapt, he finished. Imperfectly, but sincerely. Dad asked me yesterday if your company might consider developing a financial literacy app for young adults. Mom is reading books about women entrepreneurs. They're trying, Audrey. And what about you? I asked. What do you want separate from what they want? Jason took a deep breath. I want to explore creating a foundation that bridges traditional banking with innovative financial technologies for underserved communities. I've been researching it for months, but was too afraid to bring it up at the bank. That sounds amazing, I said sincerely. And I want to marry you, with a fair prenup that respects both our contributions. I want to build a life where we both get to pursue our passions and support each other's dreams. I want children eventually, if you do, and I want them to see both their parents as whole, fulfilled people. Tears pricked my eyes. You've really been thinking. I should have done it years ago, he admitted. It took almost losing you to make me realize how much of myself I've suppressed to meet my family's expectations. From his pocket, he withdrew a small box, not the one containing his grandmother's ring, but something new. I'm not asking you to wear the Thompson heirloom anymore, he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning modern ring with a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. This is just from me to you. No family legacy attached, no expectations. Just us. It's beautiful, I whispered. I'd like to start fresh, Jason said. With this ring, with a fair agreement that Taylor and the family lawyers have both approved, and with a promise that we face everything as equals. Is that a reproposal? I asked, smiling through tears. It is. Audrey Mitchell, will you marry me, the real me, not the Thompson heir, and let me marry the real you, brilliant business mind and all. I took the ring from the box and slipped it onto my finger alongside the heirloom. I think I need both, I said. The tradition and the innovation. Just like your family needs both. Just like we need both. Jason's face broke into a radiant smile as he understood my meaning. Is that a yes? He asked. It's a yes, I confirmed, pulling him close for a kiss. 2 months later, we were married in a ceremony that blended traditions from both our worlds. The Thompson Estate Gardens provided a historic backdrop, while my tech industry friends brought contemporary energy. Howard gave a toast that acknowledged, with surprising humility, the changing nature of family and partnership. My father spoke about the value of building something that lasts. Whether a marriage, a business, or a banking dynasty. Jason and I signed our mutually respectful prenuptial agreement a week before the wedding, with both families present. Michael and I had already begun implementing the first phase of technological integration between my company and Thompson Banking. Amanda was designing an innovative branch concept that would attract younger clients. As I danced with my new husband at our reception, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The ultimatum that started it all, sign it or the wedding's off, had nearly derailed our relationship. But it had also forced uncomfortable truths into the open and catalyzed changes that might otherwise have taken years, if they happened at all. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as ultimatums. Sometimes the thing that threatens to break you becomes the foundation for something stronger. Have you ever stood your ground when someone underestimated your worth? What would you have done in my situation? Signed the prenup, walked away, or fought for fair terms? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this story. Thank you for listening, and remember, knowing your value isn't about money or assets. It's about demanding the respect you deserve.